Talking baseball, baseball and the Orioles.
Welcome to the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I am so excited with how this spring has started. You know, folks, it's a cold, blistery day outside for me, probably for most of you. Must be a very nice day down in Florida, I'm assuming. But these Orioles are what's keeping me hot. They're keeping me warm because they've come off to a great start. They were 3-1 in our last episode, added 2 more wins to that, 5-1 coming into today. They have a big time matchup against the Pirates today, and I put big in big quotes because it's really just big because it's gotten some national attention, some national publicity because of basically the matchup between Jackson Holliday, our not only top prospect in baseball, but also the former number 1 overall pick 2 years ago, going up against Paul Skeens, the former number 1 pick from last year, and definitely the most exciting pitching prospect in baseball right now, potentially in a long time from what people have been saying. This kid seems to have the stuff. The Pirates seem to have gotten themselves a good one, and I wouldn't be shocked if they're competitive, if he finds his way up on that major league club after just about a month or so in the minors this season. But that's for the Pirates podcast. We're the Orioles podcast, gang. So we're going to touch on everything Orioles, okay? And I really want to start off with something that I woke up with today, okay? It was a text from a good family friend, Gunk, huge Orioles fan like me, and he sent me a clip. It was only about 90 seconds. It was of Cal Ripken talking to Joe Buck at some like forum in front of a bunch of people. I'm not sure where exactly it was, okay? But ultimately the message was coming into spring training in 1983 after the way they lost in 82. And if you aren't familiar with that, it went down to game 162 for the Orioles and the Brewers that year. I know the Brewers were in the AL East. Half my audience is looking at me like I have 5 heads saying that. The other half probably remembers it. So, listen, that's just how it was set up. The playoff format was wildly different, much more simplistic. Now it's a lot crazier and a lot more spots. And in many ways, it's a good thing. Just look at last year with one of the last teams in, maybe the last team in, making a run to win the World Series, okay? So that's why they do it. That's the excitement, giving more teams a chance to win. But to get back to what Cal was talking about, okay? And we know they went on to win the World Series in 1983, okay? Cal was talking about losing on that last day of 1982, having to watch the Brewers celebrate in front of them when they had this team that they felt was ready to roll. They felt was ready to win the World Series that year. And they didn't get that chance because they lost on that day. And they thought back to the game, a random game in April or May that could have changed the difference. Now, that doesn't necessarily ring true for the Orioles of last year since they led the ALs in wins, second best record in baseball, 101 wins. But I think they can understand the point of watching the other team celebrate in front of you, seeing that pain, having this belief and watching it crumble in that final moment, okay? And the quote that stuck with me from Cal Ripken in that, I'll read it to you here because I really think that we're not only seeing this from the Orioles right now, but we anticipated this. We were hoping that they were going to take it this way, and I believe they have. I wouldn't be shocked if Cal said this to the guys in the clubhouse, okay? The quote that stuck with me was, when we went to spring, you didn't have to tell anybody. We were more businesslike. We got off to a faster start. And I think we're seeing that. Because if I remember back to this time last year, it didn't seem like these guys were really clicking. The guys that we know are going to be on this team, at least eventually, weren't really clicking. And listen, I want them to have fun. And they were businesslike last year, but it's more businesslike this year. They're coming in, I see this new attitude. I don't see as many goofball moves around there, and you gotta have some. You gotta have fun. It's the child's game. It's the kid's game. Need to have fun out there. And I believe we have a group that can handle the two. especially led by Adley Rushman, because he, to me, is the king of that. Having fun and winning. He's shown me that he has that presence and can bring that out of everybody perfectly, in perfect harmony. But I believe we're seeing that, and I love that Gunk sent me that this morning. It's what I needed. It's what I wanted to hear. It's what I've already been thinking. But hearing a guy like Cal Ripken, and again, he's probably said this to the team. Again, now he's a part owner. But he's always had unfettered access to the franchise, to the guys. Could always come and talk to them. I mean, heck, some of these guys see him on a regular basis while playing in the minor leagues for the Ironbirds when they first start. You don't think Jackson Holliday talked to Cal Ripken last year when he was swinging for the Ironbirds? Come on. Either way, I love the quote. I love seeing that. And you saw what came of that 1983 season, okay? The championship, their last championship. So, that's what I'm saying. This is what I've been saying since episode 1, and I'll continue to say. These Orioles are in their championship window. This is the moment. These are the times. And yeah, just because you don't win it this year doesn't mean it can't be next year. But guess what? If you start with this year, you can still win it next year. I want to see this be a dynasty. Because I think they have the group that deserves that. Hell, I think we have the fan base that has earned that. You see the jersey I'm wearing, you might see a couple stains on it. Let me tell you, if you saw it in person, you would think I should probably throw it out. But I'm not. They're battle scars. I've had this jersey through all the losing years, man. I want them through the winning years, too. So, yeah, when you see some stains, when you see this white jersey that used to be pristine and now is way more yellow and stained, it's because I was there when we were losing those 101 games. I had this. I went through the tough times. We went through the muck. And I know you can understand that. Because if you're here, you probably went through the muck too with me. But I don't think we're going through muck right now. I think now's the good times. You look at how, again, they've started this spring. Last episode, we were talking about them being 3-1, only losing one split squad game. Well, and guess what? Now they're 5-1 headed into today. Again, only losing that one split squad game. I mean, they're playing their tails off. And not everyone has the production yet. Not everyone's producing. That's okay. I mean, again, I'm not going to dig too much into the stat lines and the box scores of these spring training games, especially in the early half, when guys are just kind of getting back into the rhythm of it. Even if you've been working all off season, those live games, listen, it takes some time to get back into the swing of it. So I don't hate on guys that are having these slow starts. It's okay. It's more than okay. You have plenty of time. But there's a ton of them that are on hot starts. That's why we're 5-1 headed into today. Okay? Because we're playing good baseball. All over. They're pitching really well, which is a great sign. Unbelievable sign. In fact, if you would have asked me 10 days ago, what's the thing that you want to see most out of the Orioles early spring? It's that the pitching's looking good. Now, I touched on it. Sometimes, especially hitters, take some time, okay? To get warm, to get back into it, to adjust. That's okay. That's going to happen. And that's going to lead to maybe some pitchers looking better than they actually are early. But I talked about this in episode 2. It's not always the stats that come out. It's what's behind it. It's the method. It's the thought behind it. It's improving on what the team is telling you to improve as a player, even if the results don't come. Okay? At least right away. And I think that we're seeing that with the pitching. Okay? We're seeing these younger guys put up some great numbers early. We're seeing some of these guys that we're hoping can step up and fill some gaps. Take those steps. Be that veteran. Be that guy that whether it's your 7th year or it's your 2nd or 3rd year, you're now a veteran presence on this team. And if we need you to bridge a gap, if that's the job we need you to do, you're going to go out there and do it. And a lot of guys are showing us that they're going to go out there and do it. And they're going to compete for a much bigger spot than just to bridge a gap. And we'll get to all that. We'll break down some of these hot starts. We'll talk about some of these guys that are showing us a lot of stuff early, whether they're veterans, whether they're young men. And frankly, we got a couple new signings in Orioles camp too that we'll get to what that means. To start off, I just want to touch on games 5 and 6 because, again, we're seeing just the future in front of our eyes, guys. The things that are happening are very interesting, and some of them are very telling on how the roster is going to shake out, at least to break camp, which, again, we talked about. Just because you break camp with this team doesn't mean that this is what you're going to have for 162. In some which way, something is going to change over the course of the season, and things will continue to change and evolve. But let's get to game 5, okay, of the spring training against Detroit. 5-2 victory. It wasn't always pretty. It wasn't crazy, but we saw a lot of nice things. The first of which, seeing Jackson Holliday get off the schneid, okay, fine, getting himself on base, getting a base hit. It was nice. I want to say it was his first base hit all spring, and again, it's only a few opportunities. You know, if you have a lot of opportunities, one hit raises your batting average maybe a point or two. His batting average was like 142 headed into that, after that. So, it's the type of thing where, listen, not many opportunities. I think he's been a little overmatched early, but this is the type of thing that we've heard from him, is that when that happens, when he can feel a little overmatched, when maybe he's swinging for the fences a little too much, you know, he adjusts. He figures it out. And that's why he's going to be a star. And that's why I still believe he's going to break camp with this team. And we'll touch a little bit more on that when we get farther down the sheet. Okay? Greyrod let up a home run in the first inning, solo shot. And listen, a lot of baseball, pitching-wise, is you're going to give up some home runs. Give them up with nobody on, and you can be that elite talent. Even the elite talents give up home runs, but they give up solo shots. They don't give up the 3 runs. So, listen, good stuff, not great stuff, but as far as the actual pitching, as far as the actual balls coming out of his hand, great stuff. Nothing but positive things to say about Greyrod. He's working on a new 2-seamer also. Hopefully he can find success with that. But the man has the arsenal to succeed at the major league level without that 2-seamer. And not only succeed, but thrive. So I'm not worried about Greyrod. Again, I think it was overall a positive start. So I'm not going to harp on it. Also in that game, some guys out of the pen. Dylan Tate. You know, I mentioned last episode I thought he was having a tough camp. I think that I just kind of remembered a couple live BP sessions that maybe he got hit around a bit. But as far as this game, it was his first action, I believe still his only action of the spring, in an actual game. And he went scoreless. He did great. He looked great. His stuff was sharp. So, hey, maybe him just getting hit in those BPs or us having good offensive talent. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is if Dylan Tate can be healthy and just be good enough to be average to above average, he's a great guy to have in this pen. And one of those guys that can help bridge the gap and work to get a bigger role. Another guy that's looking to do that is Big Mike Bauman. Was talking him up last episode. Boom. Just like that, scoreless also. And a guy we talked about in the first episode, Chase McDermott, 1 2/3 scoreless. You know, this is one of our top pitching prospects. Him, Povich. Like, these are 2 big names. It's great seeing McDermott go not only an inning, but an inning and 2/3 scoreless. And again, can only put so much on that, but they pitched well. It's not like they're walking 3 and giving up none. No, most of these guys are pitching really well, okay? So that was the win against Detroit. Game 6 to go to 5-1, crushed the Twins, crushed them, 12-3. You love seeing it. You love seeing when this offense is really clicking. You look down the box score, and I'm not going to dig into all 20 batters that got in. I'm not. But you look at it, and there's a lot of good stat lines out there, a lot of positive stat lines out there. The ones that we're going to focus on just for a second is Jordan Westburg, Ramon Urias, and Kobe Mayo, all of which have huge hot starts, okay? Oh, and another guy with a huge hot start, maybe the hottest, Colton Cowser. 3-run bomb in that game, his second home run of spring. And we're about to jump into those hot starts, but you love seeing a game like that where not only did your pitching succeed, you only let up 3 runs, but your offense can put up 12. And we're talking the offense from guys that are going to be on the major league roster, guys that are fringe major league roster guys, to guys that are the top prospects, whether they're also that fringe major league guy or like Mayo, who's really just trying to break onto the scene. And it's thrilling to watch. It's absolutely thrilling to watch. So I love seeing it, guys. I love seeing it. It's an exciting start to spring. So Orioles are hot. Got the game against the Pirates on right now. It wasn't the best start, but we're not going to dig into it right now. We'll wait till next episode to dig into that game. Either way, 1 month away from opening day, folks. 1 month away till Camden Yards is rocking again. I was there for the ALDS. It was a beautiful scene walking into the stadium. Walking out was sad. But neither here or there, walking in, that excitement, that energy, it's going to be there in a month for opening day. We're going to be there. We got club seats. Come and find us. We'll be in touch on that. We got a month. All I'm saying is it's coming like a jail on wheels. And hell, I'm excited. I couldn't be any more excited, okay? So let's get back to those hot starts by these Orioles. And I could list a lot of them. Frankly, I could. That's how successful they've been recently. We talked about this one name, though, so I'm going to continue talking about it, and that's Kobe Mayo. Kobe Mayo has been smashing the ball this spring. Hit a ball 110 miles an hour in his last game. Double. Third double of spring. The kid, after those first 6 games, listen to this stat line by Kobe Mayo, who, yes, is one of our top prospects, a guy that every team was asking about in trades. And we were lucky enough to make the trade without Kobe Mayo. And this is why. Oh, this is why he's starting to make me think he can make this opening day roster. In an episode or 2 ago, I told you it wasn't happening. I told you I didn't see the path. This is the path. And I don't want to get too crazy about a week of spring training games. But listen to this stat line, okay? 5 for 9, 3 doubles, 3 walks. That means that in his 12 plate appearances, he's reached base 8 of those 12 times. Yeah, he's not going to do that every week in the the man's not going to bat 600. Man's not going to have an on base of 89. Okay? But like, you see why not only is he a top prospect, but why he has a real shot, I guess, at making this roster. Trust me, I didn't see it. I didn't see the path. But now maybe I'm seeing a different path. Because remember, well, we'll get to that. Let's finish the hot starts, and then we'll get to why Kobe Mayo's path to the majors is very, very real right now. Okay? And it's a combination of a few things. We'll see. Talked about another guy earlier, Dylan Tate. Looked very sharp in his only outing. I know I mentioned that, but Very sharp. Not only were the results there, but how he was throwing, how it looked, the location. It was very impressive from a guy who really hasn't pitched in a couple years. And also a guy who has tremendous top talent. Was on these Orioles top prospect lists for a long time before he started getting hurt. So, if he can regain that, it happens sometimes in guys' career. Not everything's linear. Not everything's a straight progression. Sometimes you start progressing and then you fall off with injury and you have a couple dead years. And then sometimes you guys start back from the bottom. But other times you jump right back up to where you were and you're already there. Maybe that's what we're seeing in Dylan Tate. It would be amazing. Talking about last episode, we mentioned the possibility of Craig Kimbrell losing the closer job. And I was here screaming about Tyler Wells. Well, maybe Dylan Tate. Because remember, he was the man that was supposed to take the job from Michael Givens. Givens' first go-around with the Orioles. Not last year's go-around, the time before. When Givens was leaving and they had that closer role, everyone thought it was going to be Tate. Maybe not take it directly from his hands, but take it shortly down the line. So maybe that's the answer without Batista in the bullpen. Maybe that's the answer. Dylan Tate. Love to see it. I just love the options. Everything I'm saying are good problems to have for these Orioles. The more guys that can rise, the more guys that can improve, the more guys that are making a push for either a roster spot, a back-end bullpen spot, a closing spot. And again, I don't think Kimbrell is in danger of losing the closing spot yet. And I don't know if we'll have time to talk about it on this episode, but I do want to talk about that potential more, at least moving forward in another episode. Okay? So now another man we talked about with having a hot start, Colton Cowser. Heck, if spring training was a week and a half long, Colton Cowser would be on this ball club. I still think that the Orioles may, because of options, give themselves more flexibility moving forward by keeping somebody else, a different outfielder, on this roster. But if Cowser's going to play like this, you almost have to have him up. 3 for 6, 2 dingers, including the walk-off in game 1, 3 walks. So, you want to project it like Kobe Mayo, we projected it? In his 9 plate appearances, the man's been on 6 times, 2 of which have been home runs. And again, it's not always the results. It's what happened, what actually happened, which caused the result, okay? Brandon Hyde had this quote, and this is what stuck with me from Colton Cowser. Aggressive, good swings. He's out there being aggressive. This is a man who came up and failed last year. And at times looked very passive at the plate. I don't know if he was doubting it. I don't know if he thought that that was a better method to go about being successful at the major league level. I think that that is more realistic than the man starting to doubt his ability. Because I don't think he doubted his ability. Maybe at the very end of that stretch of the majors, but ultimately he didn't question it. And he came into camp, what were we saying? More business-like. And the results have followed. He got off to this fast start. He's being aggressive. He is having good swings. Because there's a difference between being aggressive and being a liability with being aggressive. There's a difference between completely guessing that you're going to get a fastball and being aggressive to get there, or actually seeing the fastball and being aggressive on it. So he's getting not only aggressive, but good swings from Brandon Hyde's mouth. And that is a beautiful thing to hear. Because if that man can be what he was advertised as. Again, another good problem for these Orioles to have. Forcing these veterans to live up to what they should be. Because there's a kid hot on your heels. Better get going. Better produce. Or else you're going to see that playing time start to dwindle. Maybe calling a different place home. And that's down the line. I don't want to see that for any of them. Again, we've touched on this before, but I love our 3 starting outfielders. If they live up to what they should be, they're one of the best outfields in baseball. But if one of them falters, Colin Cowser's right on your heels. And I mentioned this in the first episode at the very end. I touched on it. And the more it's sunk in, the more it makes sense to me. And I'm going to explore this possible trade later on if we have time today. If not, it's not a pressing issue because, again, this isn't going to happen before the season. This is something that would happen during the season if it happened. But I want to start the conversation on it eventually because nobody's talking about it. People are talking about the first part happening, but not for us to be the ones to do it. And I know you're looking at me like, what am I talking about right now? I'm being very mysterious. It's because I don't want to give it away. I don't want to come out and talk about it until we're talking about it, okay? But if you're really curious, go back to that episode 1. It's towards the very end. And I mentioned this hypothetical. The more it's sticking with me, the more it makes sense. And we want to talk about paths to it being realistic. That's something that I'm starting to be able to see the path to being realistic, okay? But again, you might not even know what I'm talking about because I'm being very mysterious right now about it. Don't want to start the conversation too soon, but I want to get it out there. I want to be the one to be the driving force behind could be a special move down the road. But let's get back to the hot starts. This is a man that in episode 1, before any games were played, I was here talking about I could see this man having a sneaky good year. Again, not just bridging that gap, but making the ascension into a serious role on this team. Talk about what Cal Ripken's quote is. More business-like. Came in for a faster start. That's what Cole Irvin has done. Not only on the field, but off the field. We talked about his diet changes. We talked about his core work. Talked about the weight loss. He looked good. He sounded good. He was excited coming into camp about what he could produce for this team. And he's shown it so far. It was only that one start so far, and we already touched on it, but that's a hot start. Because on the side fields, in the bullpens, he's been making an impression on this team too. And he's a veteran major league pitcher who understands how to get outs in this league. He's had his moments where he's been pretty solid in the majors. But he was still young. Now he's become more seasoned, more veteran, taking it more seriously, more business-like. Cole Irvin could be a serious piece of this rotation. Truly. It would not shock me. You want to talk projecting down the road. It would not shock me, even if we get Bradish and Means back. Obviously, Bradish steps into the rotation, but it would not shock me if Irvin was the one to keep that 5 spot. Stay in the rotation. And we're going to send John Means to the bullpen and be the long guy. Wouldn't shock me. Especially if we feel that Means is having trouble staying healthy. Maybe use him a little less. count on him for 3 innings and not 5 or 6 every time he goes out there. Hell, count on him for an inning. So maybe that's the idea if Cole Irvin wants to step up and be that man. And I think he could be. Talk about long shots. Cole Irvin, around All-Star break, could be talked about as being one of the top guys in Cy Young. Now, I don't think that'll happen. Mainly because I think Corbin Burnes and Grayson Rodriguez will be up there. And just how many Orioles are they going to talk about winning potentially this Cy Young? I mean, I guess it depends. If they all come out to hot starts and they all are looking good and the Orioles are at the top of the league, you could look at it and be like, hell, with a great second half, any one of these guys could win it. Not crazy. Not crazy. And we're going to touch on another guy who I'd be more surprised about being towards the top of that Cy Young talk, but is making comments along, in some regards, wanting to be an elite major league pitcher. And we'll touch on that soon. We're getting to it. There's a couple other names, all pitchers, all young pitchers, that I want to touch on about having hot starts and looking phenomenal in camp, okay? And the first name is Justin Armbruster. Haven't mentioned him yet on this podcast. One of their top relief pitching prospects. Kid's got an arsenal. Kid's got great stuff. And he mixes this cutter with this slider. The reports out of camp is that his stuff is looking beyond nasty. Nasty has been the number one thing said about his stuff in camp. And I don't see a chance for him to be one of those 8 guys in the pen. Or 8 guys in the pen. 8 pitchers. Okay? I don't look at him really having that chance. But it's possible in a month or two for him to be one of the guys that they bring up and see what he has. So that's a name to keep your eye on. Justin Armbruster. Kind of a cool name, too. Armbruster. Worried about what that last name might look like on the back of a jersey, the new ones are, but listen, that's low-hanging fruit. If we start talking the jersey talk, that's low-hanging fruit, gang. I don't need the low-hanging fruit. I'll leave that to the first takes of the world. It's the Talkin Orioles baseball podcast. And just to end that talk, I truly believe that in a month for opening day, nobody's even going to notice them because either we're used to it or they fix their mistakes and they'll probably correct their mistakes. I would hope they correct their mistakes, but they don't look great. But we'll see. We'll see about that again. Low-hanging fruit. Let the other shows talk about that. We're here to talk about Alex Pham and the other guys. Alex Pham is somebody who's putting in a nice camp too. Now, this is the type of guy to me that because of his smaller stature, he's like 5'11", I think. He's not nearly as big as some of these other guys, but that doesn't necessarily matter. Maybe his stuff isn't as electric as other people, but he seems to get better results than a lot of people. He reminds me of another Alex we had in the minors, Alex Wells, who I believe was our minor league pitcher of the year, probably going back 6 years ago at this point. Kid with glasses, looked goofy. I actually don't even know where he is right now. He may still be in our minor leagues. I don't think he is, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure he was Canadian. I know a lot about this random guy who never, I think, even pitched for us in the majors. But it kind of reminds me of the similar talk. Maybe not the guy that blows you away with stuff, but a guy that hits his spots, a guy that can pitch. Because sometimes it's just about, can you pitch? I don't care about what you're throwing. I care about if you can pitch with it. You find a way to get the outs. It's the beautiful thing about baseball. I don't need you to throw 101. I need you to get an out. Some guys can just do that. Some guys have the mental ability to do that. Maybe Alex Pham is. Maybe Alex Pham is one of them. Again, I don't think he has a chance at this major league roster to break camp, but down the road, starts having a nice year in the minors. There's always going to be times when you need a guy in the bullpen. We need to taxi squad somebody. Need to move them up and down. These could be the names. And another guy we touched on slightly last episode, and he's really making a push to making this opening day roster, and that's Matt Crook. Okay, he was one of the guys that we picked up, who was designated for assignment, and we picked up. Pitched with the Yankees, I think 5 innings last year. Got shelled a bit. Something on maybe 13 innings, whatever it was, 5 runs, 13 innings, something along those lines. He didn't have great success, but apparently he's got great stuff. If you look at last year's in the minor leagues, I believe he was top 2 in strikeouts per 9 or strikeouts in general in the minors last year, whatever it was. He's got a knack for getting strikeouts. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times with these guys, sometimes you can walk too many guys. Seems that might be the case, but when does it click? Maybe never. Could be never. Sometimes it never clicks for these guys, and they're just a wild stallion throwing all over the place. Wild thing. Sometimes, like in Major League the movie, you get him a pair of glasses and that's what clicks. I don't know. I don't think it's that simple that the kid needs glasses, but it's sometimes as simple of a adjustment like that. Dang, I apologize about the technical difficulties we just had. Need to work out a couple things there, but we're back. Okay, we're back to talking about it, and we were talking about Matt Crook and how maybe just a little adjustment by these Orioles could get him to being this player that is a big-time contributor for this team. And he's the type of guy that either has to make this roster out of camp or they could lose him. So he's got a real path, especially if he keeps showing that he's got some potential for him. So don't be surprised if Matt Crook's in this bullpen. So next on the list, Orioles got a couple new signees, okay? Brought in a couple guys to camp, couple veterans. You know, there's some big names out there that maybe some people would have loved to see, okay? That's not where we went. We went with some veteran role players. But interesting pieces, and I think the messages that they might send are both intriguing. It could mean a few things, so there's no guarantee. But first one was Julio Teheran. It's funny, both these names are guys that if you told me 8 years ago the Orioles brought in, I'd be thrilled. Now it's like, oh, okay, Julio Teheran, he's pretty much at the end of it. Had like a year or two off. Came back last year. Listen, his numbers aren't anything that jump off the page. He doesn't have the velocity anymore. The miles per hour isn't there, but it wasn't bad. Despite the fact that he didn't have electric stuff last year, it really wasn't that bad. And I think his ERA was in the mid-4s. I mean, he's a guy that truly could be the long relief man, main long relief man for this bullpen, or even end of rotation. If Irvin and Wells aren't looking like they're going to be that starter, even if one of them out of camp, we might need a 5th guy. And Teheran could be that guy. Do I think he's going to have some great year with the Orioles? Probably not. But it's possible. And I think there's also a possibility maybe as the year progresses. Maybe we keep him in the organization in the minors and we bring him up when we need a guy that's a veteran that can pitch long relief for us or make a couple starts here and there. Then you got Colton Wong, the other bring-in, former first-round pick, second baseman out of Hawaii, I believe. I've always liked Colton Wong. He had a couple nice years there. Really hasn't looked great, though. Has not looked good in recent years. I don't necessarily see a true path for him on this team unless a couple things happen with other guys. I think there's only so much he can do to play himself onto this team, okay? Because Mike Elias has said that he wants a left-handed hitting second baseman, pretty much. Like, he wants his second baseman to be able to bat lefty. Now, the obvious choice there is Jackson Holliday. And while he hasn't got off to a very hot start, in fact, it's been quite cold, if you want to be honest. But I'm not panicking. I don't think the Orioles are panicking. They want to see how he reacts to that. But there's a real chance that maybe Jackson Holliday doesn't make this roster opening day. That they feel he really does need more seasoning in the minors in order to take that jump. In that case, I mean, Colton Wong's the other left-handed second baseman. The other guys all bat from the right side, I believe. So that's his path. The also other potential path would truly be if Gunnar Henderson's injury flares up again. Because everything we hear is that Gunner's very close. Gunner, at least to playing in spring training games. Again, maybe he's not 100%. These things can linger. An oblique injury can linger. But we're being told that he's very close. But what happens if he comes in and gets a little worse? They decide, you know what, let's shut him down for a week or two. Put him on the 15, 30, whatever it is. So at that point, that's another path for Colton Wong. Okay? Now, the problem, ultimately, again, as much as Mike Elias wants the lefty hitting second baseman, in the situation where Jackson Holliday is not in the majors, I truly believe that Kobe Mayo, the way he's playing, could be in the majors. Again, remember, one of the main reasons I thought Jackson would absolutely start the year with the club was for that competitive balance pick with having that rookie on the roster since opening day. Well, guess what? Kobe Mayo fills that just as much as Jackson Holliday. So if one of them, the one that has more experience, is hitting really well, and the one with less experience is not really hitting all that great, it stands within reason that you'd bring up Kobe Mayo at the start of the year. And you can have him at third base, and Westberg at second, and Gunnar at short. And that's scary. That's real. That's an absolute possibility. Now, I mentioned earlier that Ramon Urias has had a hot start also. Okay, so just because Jackson might not make this team doesn't mean that Kobe Mayo is up. But I think that a Mike Elias, if he was being honest with you, would tell you he wanted one of those two guys on the roster opening day for that competitive balance pick, assuming that it wouldn't stunt their growth, wouldn't hinder their careers, wouldn't hurt the team. I think he would choose to get that balance pick. So as much as I like Colton Wong, especially back in the day, again, it's looked ugly recently. There's still flashes here and there. I could actually weirdly see him being decent for the Orioles. But I think his path, his road to the roster is much harder than maybe Julio Teheran. And both of them might have not good odds to make the roster overall. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's another guy. Maybe you stick in the minors. Maybe you can get him to stay in your minor league system. And then in that case, I mean, they both have minor league deals. So while I'm no expert, I want to believe that you wouldn't even necessarily have to pass them through waivers. So those are guys that you could just stash. And at worst case, an injury throughout the season. They're good depth to have. Both of them are nice name depth to have. I like them both. I do. They're cool pieces. They're cool ideas. And especially if we look back to, let's say, like the '06 Orioles. Like, those would be the type of players we'd be bringing in to start. And we'd be like, hey, maybe Teheran and maybe Wong can figure it back out. Now I'm just asking you to be a veteran role player here and there, and maybe only for a week or two of the whole season in the middle. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Then one of the last things I'll touch on today is Dean Kremer. He came out and made a case that he wants to pitch 200 innings this season. I believe only 5 guys last year hit 200 innings. Now, he hit 176, I believe. Something along those lines. So it's not that insane to say that if he has a better start to the season, that he absolutely could hit 200. It would put him in somewhat elite category of MLB pitchers. Guys that you know can be a bit of a workhorse for you. They talked about how he's from San Francisco and he remembers that era of Madison Bumgarner doing it, I think, like 6 straight years of 200 innings. Now, do I expect that ever out of Dean Kremer? No, I don't. I don't expect him to get to 200 this year. But let me tell you, if he's in the 190s, 193, I'll give him the credit for it. I'll give him the credit as a 200-inning pitcher. And it'd be great, because that means he stayed healthy and he was successful. And I think that that's what he's trying to be. From what I've heard, well, that's a very broad and big statement to make on what kind of season you want. It seems like he's really concentrating more on the little steps, the individual pitches, the individual moments. He's not trying to see everything. He's just looking at what's in front of his face, the 6 inches in front of your face. Al Pacino, Any Given Sunday. Like, that's what he's talking about. And I love that for my guys, because that's, to me, what makes the guys take that next step and be reliable. All he's doing is looking to be reliable. I'm not going to bash the guy for looking to be reliable. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I think I'm going to cut the episode a little short today. Again, we had that technical difficulty. We're back, but I just want to dig into everything and make sure everything is up to standard, moving forward, up to par. We have a lot to talk about. We talked about a lot today. A lot of good stuff. I loved it. I'm very excited for us moving forward. And ultimately, we'll see where this goes. I know I teased a couple things we'll talk about. I'll try and get to them next episode. Like I said, we got a lot of time for some of this. We got a lot of time, gang. So with that being said, this has been the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. See you next time, gang.